cohorted program, meaning you will work together. You will be in the same classes in the same cohort for the next 2 years. The first year we focus on the basics, the foundation level, layout, typography, color, color theory, branding, icons, symbols, everything that you can use and carry on into the second year when you start to work on more campaign-driven projects, more lengthier projects, as well as the business of design and advanced design practices like motion graphics, package design, and other campaigns. The goal is for you to get employment, right? So it's a very popular field. It's a field that you can find a lot of diverse jobs in. And we have a few that like we kind of ask you look into, whether it be for an agency. So an agency would be working for a firm that would design for other clients, right? For external clients. You can work in-house, meaning it might be for, like, say, if you worked in-house at UCF, you'd be designing for UCF, right? And then any type of freelance too. So that might be something on a contract basis. So those are like some of our focus areas, but it will get more broad, and you'll have a larger net within these. The biggest thing I see a lot is a confusion with graphic design and illustration. So those are two different focus areas. We have a separate track for illustration that is not graphic design. Now, while there is some overlap, our sole focus is design. So I want to kind of be clear on that. We create works as designers that combine illustration, yes, but typography, layouts, hierarchy, component, like everything, animation, all these components come together to create a holistic item or object or product or experience. We focus on the entire look. These could be campaigns. So if it's a branding campaign, it'll start with the logo design, but it'll go all the way to wayfinding or experiential or web design. Illustration, on the other hand, is concerned with like creating imagery, right, that tells stories. So I always think about illustration being like you've been tasked with communicating a story a lot through drawing means or more expressive means. And that's like one component that a designer would then use for their campaign. So I think of book cover design. As an illustrator, you might be asked, hey, we need a cover illustration. So you would be tasked with making the drawing or the painting for the cover. That would then be passed on to the design team, who would add the text on top, like the title. They would add the spine design. They would create the layouts for the book, right? So that's a designer. Now, it doesn't mean a designer might not do the book cover design too. They might actually illustrate it too, but those are like the clear distinction between the two. With design, we are focused on typography, layout, imagery, and the incorporation of illustration, but it's not a purely illustrative track. So again, the primary object of graphic design is to utilize a wide variety of elements and approaches to communicate a clear and concise message, while illustration, on the other hand, is more to create a visual that conveys a story that is in turn becomes one of the elements used by a designer. And so what I was saying, like, there's the three, like ad agency, in-house, and then freelance, but that can be cast into different titles. You can work as an art director where you kind of lead the visuals. The creative director kind of leads the entire idea of a project. Brand design, so coming up with brand systems, identity design, editorial, book, packaging. UI is user interface, and UX is user experience designers. Sometimes they're the same thing, sometimes they're different. But as you can see, there's a ton of different fields within graphic design, all the way down to type design and lettering. as well as printing and brand strategy or project management. So there's a lot of diverse fields that you get into, and sometimes there's some combination of the two. Like if you're maybe a brand designer, you might also work like in content designing too. So it's not always siloed. We have several alumni networks, and these are some of the companies that they are at right now. So 321 The Agency is a branding agency here in Orlando, Big Eye as well. Then we have, major firms like CBS, Dallas Cowboys, Disney's Yellow Shoes, the LPGA. We have several alumni there. Nike, Oracle. We just had someone hired at Oracle for last semester, which is really exciting. The Orlando Magic, Orlando City, Pepsi, Purple Rock Scissors. So feel free to look all these agencies up. A lot of them are local, but many of them are national too. All right. So the thing you're probably all concerned with first are your prerequisites. So these are the prerequisite courses that you need before entering the program. So you must have successfully completed these courses or be enrolled in them now. And of course, you need to pass them before you can enter the program, right? So a GPA of 3.0 is required, and a grade of C or better is required for these prerequisite courses. So make sure you have these courses and have passed with a C or better. Again, these courses must be completed or enrolled in by the semester applying for portfolio. So if you're taking one of these courses next semester, you're not eligible to apply yet. So you'd be asked to apply next cycle, next spring. Again, just want to reiterate, GPA of 3.0 is required for major courses, and a grade of C or better is required for prerequisite courses, though all those that are listed. And again, these courses must be completed or enrolled in by the semester applying for the portfolio. And remember, you have to pass with a C or better in these current courses. So you might get into the program, right? But if you don't pass these current courses with a C or better, you won't be able to enroll. So this is the schedule of the 2 years that you are here. And we are adding a few more courses, but they are not in this current cycle. So you'll start with your intermediate graphic design courses, which you'll have with either myself or Victor. We focus on layout and branding in the first two intermediates. Type and Design 1 focuses on the foundations of typography, while Type and Design 2 gets a little bit more advanced with more expressive typography as well as creating your own typeface. In the intermediate computer graphic design course, we focus on an entire brand and identity system as well as UI and UX design. It's kind of like all these courses serve as like introductions to aspects of the career, so you can figure out where you like and figure out, I guess, where you fit and where you're passionate. And then once we get into our advanced courses, advanced graphic design is right now a more packaging and business of design course. Advanced computer graphic design is our motion graphics course, so you can learn a lot about taking your designs and using them in, like, again, Adobe Premiere and Adobe oh crap, forgot the other one. After Effects, excuse me, blanked. And then special problems in graphic design is our capstone course. So that is your kind of thesis class in which you create your final project for your finished major. Hardware recommendations. So this is an expensive field. It is definitely a more pricier ask, but we ask that you have a laptop. It can be PC or Mac, but we recommend it being in the Apple ecosystem only because it is the industry standard for it. and we'll be doing all of our tutorials and demonstrations on Mac. Doesn't mean you can't use a PC, that's completely fine. Just make sure it's got a minimum of 8 GB of RAM, but 16 GB is recommended for some of these, kind of more robust softwares like Adobe Premiere or Adobe Photoshop or something like that. So a laptop is highly recommended. If you only have an iPad, it's going to limit you in a lot of ways. Printing is going to be difficult, and some of these softwares that we require are not available on like an iPad yet, or like maybe a Surface Pro you're thinking, but they might not have that 8 GB of RAM that you need, while 16 GB is recommended. Now, I recommend you go to some of these software sites like Adobe. They're going to list exactly what they recommend for the programs that you're going to use. So if yours is under that, it might not be powerful enough to have multiple programs going at once, or even maybe one program going at once. A lot of our students like having an iPad as a secondary device, so maybe for sketching or like working in Procreate, but again, it's not required. We recommend, and we're pretty much having a laptop is going to be the best thing to have for this class, something you can bring to the classroom and use throughout the program, your time in the program. A tablet is optional again for secondary use. It's not a big part of our program, but it's something if you wanted to create a little bit more like vector graphics. A backup service for files, and of course a computer mouse is recommended for our program. This is the software that we use. In the left panel is pretty much all the programs you're going to be required to learn. In the right panel are more like helpful for creating certain visuals. So we do work in the Adobe ecosystem. It is still industry standard. So that is going to be required software that you'll download. We usually start in Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign, and then we work our way up to After Effects, Premiere. Figma is also another program that you can use. We use that in the UI and the UX class. It is free. It has a educational, professional account that you can apply for using your UCF email. And then the ones on the right, like Adobe Fresco, Procreate, again, those can be secondary, helpful for making roughs or drawings or any kind of graphics that you want to add. Some of the areas that we go over and highlight in the graphic design area is print and web, brand identity, editorial design, type design, product design, motion, packaging, environmental design, social media, content creation, information design, interactive design, book design, and industrial design. But that's a lot of words that have a lot of different meanings. But really what we focus on is user experience as a whole. So how does someone interact with something, whether it be a brand? How does someone experience a brand? All the way to editorials. How does someone like navigate a book, right? How does someone get the most out of their experience? So a big part of our program is user experience design as a whole. This is one of our studios. This is the VAB 215. It holds about 40 people in it. So we have 2 classes of 35 usually. But it's a great space. We have a lab, we have printers. As you can see, it's not a computer lab, so that's why we require having access to a laptop. We do have about 7 laptops that can be like used during class if something happens or you need one. But again, we don't have enough to service a whole class. We used to have a lab and no one used the computers, so it just became a lot easier to just bring your laptop and have it because you could continue working on it. So it's a flexible space. You have 24-hour access to it as long as there's not a class happening. But it's a great space to work and collaborate. We have a lot of technology like a Glowforge. We have several large format printers as well as more desktop printers, and we also have like a risograph printer, which is like a fancy photocopier that simulates screen printing. One of the coolest, I think, parts of our program is actually the student-run Graphic Design Student Association. They do a fantastic job of creating programming throughout the year for all of our students, not just graphic design, but everyone at UCF. So check them out. If you don't know of them, you can start attending meetings this semester, get to know everyone. I believe they meet on Tuesdays at like 6:30. But follow them on Instagram, and that's where they post all of their announcements and upcoming workshops or programming. So a great thing to get a jump start on if you're really interested in being in the program. Another thing we have is a local chapter called AIG Orlando, which is the American Institute of Graphic Artists, but it's our like community of designers in Orlando. It's also a nice thing to get and join and be a part of. We have a lot of programming centered around students and mentorship, so it's another thing that you should keep in mind and follow on Instagram. I wanted to take this time to show some student works just to give you an idea. These are just very brief like snapshots. Most of the time these are more robust presentations of the work, but again you can kind of see what some of our students are doing briefly. The first one here is branding for a podcast app. So they not only created the branding but also the app itself. We have package design, so this is creating the logo system as well as the package design. You're going to notice mostly everything in here, and mostly everything in our program is placed in a way that proves the concept. So we don't show the work flat. We actually show it in use. So you're going to see a lot of like mock-ups or actual physical works. Portfolios excel when we can actually see them in use. Now for your graphic design portfolio, doesn't mean you have to do that yet. We will show you how to do that. But if you want to start mocking stuff up, it always makes the work look good and it shows it in context. So this is like a proof of concept for a brand design for a ticket, for a theater, excuse me, it's a ticket for a theater. This is like a movie fest. This is an app design where the student created the branding for a gym app, but then also created the entire UI for end user experience, user interface and user experience for the app. Then we have some print design, publication design, posters. Again, the combination, remember, of imagery, text, layout is a big part of our program. Book cover design. So they created both the layouts and the inside and the external cover. Type design. So this was a student that actually created type and like laser cut it. This was one of their capstone projects. More layout design. This is an annual report for a local organization. This is an editorial layout design. So as you can see, there's different modes. I just showed you a brief snapshot of some of our current students, what they're working on. And yeah, so now I'll get into the application process. We have roughly 120 to 200 applications every year. It's a very competitive program. 70 are accepted, and because you're broken down into 2 classes of 35. We only accept digital portfolios for this. They must be submitted online, and the link will be below, and I'm sure it has been emailed to you all. Digital work must be presented in one PDF, so not separate files, one consolidated PDF. If you go to the link below, there is a demonstration on how to combine everything into one PDF. So you can follow that along. If you're working in like InDesign already, it'll already export it as one InDesign already. So that's the benefit of using InDesign. Your resolution for your imagery must be set to at least 150 pixels per inch. For those, it's the same as DPI. I won't get into the nuances of that, but it's the same as DPI. I want to highlight a new policy that has come down, but it's the UCF Timely Academic Progress toward a degree policy. So starting this semester, students are permitted to submit portfolios for multiple SVAD tracks within a single semester, but those who do not pass the portfolio review or decline acceptance into a track will not be eligible to reapply for that track or any other emerging media BFA tracks in future semester. The applications opens Monday, the 27th at 9 a.m. and closes Thursday, February 6th at 5 o'clock. So make sure you keep an eye on those dates. Don't be late. No late submissions are accepted. So I always tell the students, if the deadline is the 6th, you make your own deadline the way you work. So it might be the 4th or the 3rd. But again, once that time hits, the application will close and you cannot apply. You'll be notified by Wednesday the 26th. So you'll get an email. So the portfolio should consist of no less than 10 and no more than 16 pages presented in a professional manner in a single multi-page PDF portfolio document. The work should be representative of what the student, considers their best achievements. Page 1, it briefly indicate why you're interested in graphic design. No longer than 1 page, double-spaced 12-point typeface. My recommendation with this is to be specific in why you want to be in design. So I read every one of them, and man, some of them are very generic. Like, I want to be in design because I'm creative. And it's like, okay, like, great. I believe everyone is creative. So tell me specifically why, whether it be, something you did specifically as a project that opened your eyes to design, maybe something you did in high school, maybe something you're working on now that you're loving, but like, be specific, tell the story of why you want to get into the program. If it's a statement about animation or illustration, I'm probably going to be like, oh, this person doesn't want to be in graphic design. So make it specifically about design. We've gotten those where they're like, oh, I really love drawing and I really love illustration and I really love animation. And I'm like, what about design? So make sure in that statement that if you want to be here, indicate that and tell us why. I love reading them. I love seeing why you want to get into the program. It's a good entryway into getting to know you. And then the rest of the pages, like I said, no less than 10, no more than 16, any visual art form which expresses the basic concepts of design. So whether it be line, color, balance, shape, any form, typography, any of those will be your portfolio pieces. So it can be works from classes, it could be outside work. Put your best work in. If you're not a fan of it, don't put it in, right? You have 10 pages, no more than 16. If you don't like it, right, don't put it in. Put your best work in there and put a good range of work too. So if you've only got drawing, right, but drawing is great, but we're not a drawing program, right? So you want to find work that suits more design specific, right? Color theory, composition, layout, typography, photography, the combination of those. If you've done any personal projects like branding, maybe you branded a friend's company, or maybe you created a zine, right? Those are all demonstrations of layout. Those are all demonstrations of color, typography, photography, everything I've been talking about. Feel free to put those in. Doesn't mean you can't, you can put coursework in too, right? But feel free to put the personal work in as well if you feel it is the best demonstration of you. But so any other student, if you've taken book arts, you could put book arts work, ceramics, painting, printmaking, sculpture, photography. Put that work in, again, as long as it is your best work that represents you. Present the work professionally, have everything labeled, clear, consistent. We recommend the aspect ratio of 16:9, or in this case, 1920 by 1080 pixels. So it's the size of your computer screen for your portfolio. Keep it clean, you don't have to overdo it with backgrounds or even in the photos of the work, no distractions, right? Make the work shine, keep it simple, keep it clean, make the work look good. Label everything, and your name should be on every slide. So the presentation I'm showing you today, the example, the name has been redacted for protecting the student, but you should have your name very small, somewhere on every slide. So this is their portfolio. I'm just going to show you an example now. So the first one being your statement, clear, clean, tell us again a story and why you want to be in the program. And then the next few are going to be your pieces. So I think this was probably completed in GRA 2101. They showed the image, they showed it in context, which is nice, a mock-up, as well as labeled at the bottom. Now, we don't need to know the program. I'm bringing this one too because it's not the best presentation. So I also want to talk about some of the faults of it too. I like showing some that aren't like the best because I want to outline maybe where it can be improved. But in this one, you don't need to indicate the software you created, but tell us what it is. So if it's editorial design, yeah, or whatever project it was for the class, give us insight into them. And then your name. You don't have to tell us the time or of when you did it. We're not concerned with that. We just need to see your name and what it is, the labeling. So this was completed in a 2D design class. So this is their 2D design. So I love that they put shapes and lines, but again, we don't need all the other information. This was client work, so it's cool to see that they did a little bit of client work. They created a logo and some packaging for a friend, or they were hired for it. I love that it was mocked up too, so we didn't just see the flat logo design, we saw it in use. This again, I think from GRA 2101, poster as well as an album cover. I think I love that it's like evenly spaced, good balance, good use of negative space, not shoved around, and everything again is evenly spaced and proportionate to the screen. Some imagery, some painting, some other items. This demonstrates some color use. This demonstrates a little bit of layout as well as lighting. They took typography, type 1, so they gave us multiple spreads, right? You're limited to 16 pages, but it doesn't mean 16 projects, by the way. So if you do need to spread it out, you can, right? But I love that this one, they combined it to one page to make it easy. Some more type exercises from type 1 and 2. Now, I love that this one kind of fills the page a little bit more, while the previous one, I think, could be slightly adjusted to fit the page. But this is nice. A zine. So as you can see, you're seeing different formats, different views, different takes. I love that there's different styles. It's not just one. But this is like a flat, and then this is in use. Their project from 2D design that shows their understanding of color theory. In the previous ones, we saw layout and typography and photos happening. And then again, we have another design project, their pointillism and drawing, 3D design, 3D design, and that's it. So as you can see, it's a good range of work where it's not hyper focused on all the drawing, right? Again, because we're not a drawing program, we're a design program. So we see a good amount of different ways in which they work. We see evidence of typography, evidence of shape. Let me scroll through here. Evidence of storytelling, concept. I love seeing that there's a concept behind the work. Again, we see mock-ups already. We see a professionalism with the portfolio. Again, this is now typography, layout, hierarchy. So we're seeing how someone is creating a sense of hierarchy. Like, what's the first thing we see? What's the second thing we see? What's the third thing we see whenever we look at something? So this is a great demonstration of typography. And then, yeah, some nice personal work also that demonstrates a couple other things. But this is a good presentation of the work as a whole. Very clean, very simple, nothing distracting, professionally presented. Good photos. We don't see shadows. We don't see like a bed or shoes in the background. Everything is very clean, nicely presented. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for me.
All right, Ashley, thank you so much for presenting. For everyone here, my name is Felix Rodriguez. I'm the administrative assistant at the School of Visual Arts and Design at quite literally the front desk, which is where I currently am. So if you're ever inside the building, if you ever walk by the front office, I'm the first face that you see. Ashley, if you don't mind, I do have, or we do have a lot of questions here in the chat. So I was going to start from the very top and then just read them out, if that's okay
Mhm.
with you.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. For the first question I see. Does submitting your portfolio earlier make it so faculty looks at your application first, or does it not matter when you submit?
It does not matter because we do not see the portfolios until after the deadline. What'll happen is they'll be compiled and sent to us. So we don't see that.
Thank you. Next, we have, is admission to this program rolling? Like, would it be more advantageous to apply sooner in the 2 weeks that the portfolio submission is open rather than the end of the week?
I again, it doesn't matter as long as you hit that deadline. We are not going to see it until the deadline has passed. So as long as you get it in, you're fine.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Next question is, for the setup of the portfolio, would you like us to follow the tutorial exactly? Or, for example, can we change the thickness of the black bar or make the text a gray color? What would you prefer?
Yeah, whatever makes the work look good. I think you have some creative liberties you can take. You don't have to follow that one exactly. That I was just talking to a colleague today about. I'm like, I don't like showing examples because it makes you want to like fit a box. But as long as you've got your name there, as long as the work looks good, it's clear, it's labeled, take some creative liberty on how it's presented, but of course make it simple. I like the first kind of cover to be always a little bit more, interesting and fun, and then the work let it shine. So you can remove the black bar entirely and make it, a little different. If you saw my portfolio or my presentation today, I had like my name at the bottom, things like that. So you can take some liberties as long as the work is big and it looks good.
Thank you, Ashley.
Mhm.
Next question, does making an album cover for a pre-existing artist count as fan art, and is that allowed?
It is allowed. I think for academic purposes, you're allowed. I consider fan art when you are taking something like a very popular character and who someone else has created, right? Like Mickey, right? You did not create that character, right? Someone else did, and you're redrawing it or you're reinterpreting it. That to me is fan art, where you're borrowing someone else's idea. But for a cover design, you can take your own, bring your own concept, idea, as long as you're not stealing someone else's work. To me, if you take Mickey, you're stealing someone, in my eyes. I know it's controversial, but you're taking someone else's work, right? But for if you're doing something for a band and you're doing something completely original or what in a postmodern word original, that you can totally do that. Yeah, that's just a client, right?
Right. All right. Next question we have, can a project take up 2 pages in the portfolio, or do you recommend we keep each project to a single page?
I'm okay with it going. I mean, sometimes projects are big ones. Say you did a whole web design campaign or you did logo design and then the website for it. I'm okay with it spanning across 2 pages. Just be clear, maybe if you label it like, branding project maybe label it the same thing on the next page so we know, or number them if you need.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Is art of copyrighted material okay if it was a school assignment? For example, the value assignment in 2D design allowed us to use screenshots from movies. Would this be acceptable to put in our portfolio?
That is fine. We're okay with that because we're going to be looking at the design principles of it. Like we're going to be more concerned with the goal of that assignment, which was value, right? Like how did you convey value? How did you set up the composition? We're okay with it as long as it's a class project like that.
Perfect. And then does the essay have a prompt and how should it be laid out in the portfolio PDF?
I believe it was to tell us why you want to get into the program. So, like I said, tell us propose why you want to get into the program, be specific. And I think it's double spaced 12 point for the layout.
Thank you. What exactly are you looking for in the cover page? Keep it plain and simple or make it more interesting?
Honestly, plain and simple is fine to me. If you want to create like a interesting kind of like stylized one, that's okay. But you can also just keep it simple too.
Gotcha. Can I add a letter of recommendation beside my cover letter so I would still have both?
No, no, just keep it to the format there. That way it's even. It creates issues if we have other things in that portfolio. So just follow the exact requirements.
Gotcha. Next question. Is it okay to use Canva for some of the graphics, not using any of the templates?
Oh yeah, as long as you're not borrowing anyone's templates or as long as you've created the work and by creating the work, it's not even just seeing something and replicating it, or it's like coming from your original ideas, right? I mean, it doesn't mean we can't be inspired by someone's work, but we can't rip things directly, right? So Canva's fine. It's a software. It's a great software. Hey, people rip it all the time, but it's accessible. It works. Just as long as we're not using any templates. Yes.
And they asked the follow-up, will I receive some type of confirmation when I submit the portfolio?
I I believe so. It probably has a confirmation page, right?
If any of the academic success coach can answer this, I believe Yumi answered it previously as well. I think she posted into the chat when responding to the student on February 25th. Yumi, is that correct? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think you would get like your portfolio has been submitted, but I have not done it myself, so
Mhm.
I don't know.
Right. We'll move on to the next question, but I believe students receive an email confirmation at least.
Hmm.
All right, next question. Should the essay portion be put into the 1920 by 1080 dimension and made it into a PDF to take it to Adobe Acrobat for the final PDF?
Up to you. I recommend it, yeah, but if you need more space, you can do the first page as like an 8.5 by 11, but I recommend keeping it 1920 by 1080.
Is it okay to have two different artworks from 2D design on one page, or should that be separated into two slides?
No, I mean if you need more pages or if you need more projects or something, I'm okay with you putting two on the same page.
Are semesters full time and can we take classes during the summer?
So the cohorted core classes are at a specific time, but doesn't mean you can't take like your electives in the summer. I know there's other program requirements too that you can take. So while the core classes are built in and those are set, you could take some of your other required courses in the summer.
You. Should we have a limited number of personal works put into our portfolio, or do you prefer more class projects?
I prefer your best works. So if they are personal works that maybe, that
Hmm.
show typography, hierarchy, uh, color theory, photo use, layout, maybe you created a killer zine, that you loved, or maybe you created a really cool logo that you think showcases your skills because it aligns better with graphic design, show that.
Do I have to include work from 3D design and 2D design classes, or is it not necessary if I'm already including other design works?
It is not necessary if it's not your best work. Not saying you don't need to, I recommend showing some classwork, but we've had students show just all design work that they've done.
Gotcha. And could we use some art pieces that weren't made in class?
Hmm. Yeah.
Is it okay if we put our designs into mock-ups, or should we just leave them as is?
I think putting them in context is a great idea. You can have a flat version of it and then putting it in use. Just make sure the mock-up is showing the work well. I've seen some mock-ups where there's like a big shadow on it, and I'm like, oh, it's not really showing the work great. So as long as it's showing us like the relative size or how it would be seen, like if you did a book design or a cover design, showing it on the book, I think, is a great idea. It elevates it, makes it look good, and also gives us context of what size it would be. So yeah, I think showing the work, but it's not required, it's just recommended.
Gotcha. How would it work if you are accepted? And if you're put in a wait list, how will we be able to choose which track we want to go into?
Yeah.
I can answer that. So basically, when you're accepted, you will get notified via email, and it's if you apply into multiple tracks, you have to choose one. That's up to you. You can take your time. You have usually it's like a week time to make a decision. If you do not make a decision, then or if you decide to like decline, then basically your spot will be given to someone else. So that's why you do very much need to like say you will be attending whatever track you want to do. And then, so secondly, if you are put on an alternate list from the beginning, you'll be notified of this. And that first group, if they did not accept it, then you will be offered their position. And then there's the third option is just like you straight up declined. There's nothing, you would be notified. There's no like appeal process, you're just declined. So that's kind of that process. And then once you have been accepted to the program, there will be an information meeting that you have to attend, and you'll get your courses for the following fall semester to start your cohort. And yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diary. Next question we have is, the portfolio requires a demonstration of knowledge in color theory. However, I am currently enrolled in 2D art this semester, so I have not gotten the specific color theory assignment yet. What would you suggest to do for that requirement then?
Hmm. Um, so it doesn't have to be just sorry, just closing something. It doesn't just have to be from that class. It could be other uses of color, whether it being photography. The other thing could be is approaching your instructor and asking them for their advice on maybe that color theory project if you want to. But if you haven't had it yet, maybe find other ways to show color theory.
Thank you. And then if I applied last year and got put on the alternate list, does that mean I have a better chance of getting in this year?
Um,
No, it does not.
yeah.
So
I was
every
like,
submission, yeah, every submission is its own new cohort of students. Everyone's being reviewed from a new perspective. No one's looking at what was happened last year. So that does not in any way give you an advantage. If you were on alternate list last year, that's great. That means like you were doing well, but that has no effect on your next submission.
Thank you, Nairi. Well said.
Thank you. And then, I believe this was answered earlier, after portfolio submission, when do we find out if we got into the program? This is the message that Yumi responded to. She said that students notified of results via email on Wednesday, February 26th by 5 p.m. Okay, gotcha. It was just one day off. Thank you, Yumi. And then I heard they changed it to only one chance to submit. Does that start this year? So if I submitted last year as a freshman and got waitlisted, but I didn't get in, can I still apply this year?
Great question. So if you did apply last year and you did not get accepted, you can apply this year. this is your one time reapply. You cannot apply again moving forward. And if you've never applied, you only have one time. So this is your time. If you're going to do it, you have to do it now. But just, I have had this question a lot. If you have applied before this semester, you can still submit again. You do not have another chance after this time. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Nairi, for clearing that up. And then I already completed my AA in high school. Will I still be able to be a full-time student even though it's a cohort?
Technically, yes. So the program is set up of like basically full-time schedule fall and spring. So once you're admitted, you would have full-time for fall, spring until spring 2027. If you didn't for some reason, we can add just another elective. So like we can't make you full-time if you're not for some reason.
Thank you. And then is there a software you recommend for us to make our portfolio?
Yeah, I think first InDesign, but that has a steep learning curve if you haven't had InDesign yet. So you can make it in like PowerPoint. Microsoft PowerPoint is fine also if you've never used the Adobe ecosystem, or Google Slides. Also, it's a free program you can also create your PowerPoint into. So that, or excuse me, that you create your portfolio into. It's easy to use, effective, and you can use a, just like a standard like name convention and everything.
And are any of the classes available online?
It depends per semester, but it is expected to be, all the classes are expected to be in person unless for some logistical reason we go online, but it is an in-person program.
And then do you require a letter of recommendation? And if we have one, do we submit it with the portfolio?
We do not require a letter of recommendation, and even if you put it in, we would not be looking at it.
Thank you. Next question I have is, I've been working in graphic design for the past year at a mid-sized company. Can I use some of my work from that in my portfolio?
Absolutely. Just make sure you can show their work. So just make sure you have a conversation with them that you can show the work for a portfolio.
Perfect. And then for those who seek a career in graphic design and unfortunately do not get accepted into the program, what are some recommended paths or things to look into?
For anyone that's not accepted, we recommend you talk to your specific academic success coach and make a plan with that person. Like, not saying there aren't good alternate options, but like depending on what you want to do, you should talk to them and get more individualized like decision making.
Thank you. And then I submitted last year and got into the wait list. Does that not mean I was not accepted, or it was accepted, but there were more students who were more qualified, or they just submitted earlier?
Submission earlier makes no difference. You can say what you would like, Miss Ashley, but like you were in the initial list, and then the people that were in the initial list, they filled up the spots before you had the opportunity. So not saying your work wasn't good, not, and then just earlier does not make a difference here.
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. And then I had done a book cover in my digital design class in high school. Am I able to put that in my portfolio?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a book cover design is a great example of design. It shows typography, it shows imagery, shows layout. Yeah.
And how important is the essay in comparison to the portfolio pieces itself?
It's all important. It's all important.
Gotcha. And then in the portfolio pages, does it have to be 15 work pages and then one for the artist statement and one for the title? So that is 17 in total, or 16, including the title and statement?
Page 1 will be for your statement. And you can do the cover letter too. I mean, the cover page too. Pages 2 through 16 though, will be any visual art form. So that's our breakdown there.
Perfect. And then with the new spring 2025 policy, if I had already applied for the graphic design track last year and didn't make it, does that mean I can't try again this year?
The policy goes into effect this year, so you can still apply
For this year. Do
for
not
this year.
try again the following year.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you for reiterating that. And then if I have personally made artwork for keychains that I had made and produced, would you recommend to add that to my portfolio?
So, the thing we talk about a lot is just because it went into the world makes it, that's a big deal. That's huge, right? But we often get this like, I did something for a client, but it might not be your best work, right? So make sure it can demonstrate a couple things, right? A keychain is a great thing, right? But it might only be limited to being just one little design or I don't, without seeing the keychain, it's probably not doing you justice by just being one little thing, right? So again, it needs to demonstrate how you think about typography, how you, not every piece needs to do this, but I think a keychain is kind of limiting, right, in its ability to show your skills.
Right. Thank you, Ashley. And then it did just hit 10 a.m. right now when we do have quite a bit more questions to go through. Is it all right if we continue proceeding forward or?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to end at 10:30 for a meeting.
Okay, perfect. Gotcha. Next question I have is, should page 1 be a title page and then page 2 would be our statement?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. How do we label out pages aside from adding our name?
You can label them based off the project it is. So if you design the logo design, right, tell us like logo design. If you told us whatever the project is, so if it was for 2D, tell us what the project was. So if it was the shapes or if it was the value project, just tell us what that project is. We don't need to know the software. We just need to know what it is.
And then how do we label out pages aside from adding our name?
Just yeah, I think was that the same question? Okay.
No, the question before was, should page 1 be a title page and then page 2 would be our statement?
Oh, okay. So so just label each project by what it is.
Okay, thank you. And then can I separate one work into 2 pages for better display, or does it have to be a work per page?
Nope, you could separate out work.
Thank you. And then can our portfolios have the same art pieces for all tracks?
Say that one more time.
Can our portfolios have these same art pieces for all the tracks?
Oh,
So
okay.
how you doing? I interpret that as somebody's applying for, let's say,
How you doing?
animation visualization and graphic design as well. They're wondering if they can use the same work for both portfolios.
Sure, I would just caution them against that statement, right? So if you put the same statement for all three, it's probably gonna feel like, oh, this person, I want it to be more specific, right?
All right.
Towards design, So if it were me, I'm carefully crafting my portfolio for each one.
Gotcha. And then can the portfolio have pages that explain some of the projects, or do we just have to put the work and a brief comment about it?
You can go brief, please do not go lengthy. We will not read those. So we will be looking at the work. But if you want to give it a title, you want to, but we do not want to see paragraphs.
If I'm adding a pin design that represents something, should I add the items on the side that represent it?
You said a pin design?
Correct, a pin design.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can give context, if you did a really neat symbol and then the symbol represents like 3 things, I think giving context is fine. I love anything that shows intention.
Next question. So you recommend we don't include the date and any medium of the work?
I don't need a date on it. It's not really, I don't care when it was. It's as long as it's yours. But you can give us medium if you'd like. But we don't need to see like I created this in Illustrator or soft, But if it's like I created a painting, you could say like it's a painting, right?
How can we see more successful portfolios?
So the GDSA, Graphic Design
So
Student
that's what we do
Association, has a website that has a link to some portfolios that you can also view.
Thank you. And then in our portfolio, do you want us to include our name and the description of the project, example typography, or do we also mention the class it was made in / if it was personal work?
Nope, don't need to know it. Just tell us what it is.
Gotcha. And then how do we get follow-up on the result to know what we could, or let me repeat that, apologies. How do we get a follow-up on the result to know what could make my portfolio better to reapply?
So unfortunately, you won't be able to reapply. I'm sorry. But you can always reach out and we can talk about your portfolio or how to improve it. Once I recommend also talking to your success coach first to see what path you could take. But then you can always reach out and we can discuss moving forward what that could look like too, if you want any portfolio advice.
Okay. If someone has little digital design experience, do they have less of a chance of getting accepted into the program?
Not at all. Not at all. We understand that you maybe have not had any design experience yet, right? Digital design experience. That's okay. That's what we're going to teach you when you get into the program. That's why we really focus on looking at layouts. So layout can be done physically, right? It can be analog. Um, it doesn't have to be, you don't need a fancy program to do what we do.
And then for this question, we just need clarification on the portfolio. So it's a cover, the essay, then the 10 to 16 picture pages.
Yes. I was a little confused on that one too. I think some mixed messages were being sent by GDSA to have a cover letter and then, or excuse me, a cover page. It's not going to be a big deal if you don't, but just follow the page formatting requirements. But if you have a cover, that's okay too. So.
Gotcha. And then is it a detriment if we do not have a lot of 2D design, example, typography, magazine, album covers, in comparison to having paintings, sculptures, and drawings?
I think those are great to have. I think sculpture shows how you see three-dimensional form. I think painting shows how you create compositions, how you play with color. So I think those are great examples, too, to have. That's fine. Drawing also. But I invite you to also maybe have some forms of any kind of aspects of layout or something like that. You have a little bit of time too, take a stab at something with typography. Try some of these things.
And then what should be labeled? I know you said like the project for the class, example, gig poster, but what else should we label? Like the semester it was in?
Nope. Nope. Just tell us what it is. That's it. Just so we know, like if I'm looking at something, I want to know what it is. So if it's for an example, if I see an image like a band poster, but I just see the band and that's it, I'm like, is that the album? Is that a social media? Like what is it? So if it says gig poster design, I'm like, okay, it's a poster design. So then I know how to assess it.
Mhm. All right. And the next is you said you'd like seeing mock-ups of design in the portfolio, but would you like to see the concept sketches alongside it?
Sure. I mean, I think that's fine as long as the sketches are nicely presented. So everything in the portfolio should be presented professionally. So meaning like the sketches should also be presented professionally. So it can't just be like a really bad photo of sketches. I would scan them in. If the sketches are important to the process, show it. But if it's not important, or if they're just bad sketches, you do not need to show it.
Thank you. Next question is, do we need to show proof of enrollment in final prerequisites if we are enrolled in them at a different college, or would that just be a question asked after we are completed with the courses? And can I send the final transcript?
So yes, part of the portfolio is making sure your prerequisites are done or enrolled in. So we do a check of that. And if you are missing something, like you're not taking a class at UCF and you are admitted, we do follow up with you to make sure we get that like confirmation that you did take the class and that you did pass. If you did not, then your admission will be kind of taken back because you didn't meet the requirements.
Thank you, Nairi. And then can one project have more than one page in our portfolio?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if it's warranted, right? So we've gotten that question a few times. If it's just a different photo of the same thing, I don't think that's justified. But if it's like a different view or a different use, or if it's like a expanded project that has multiple deliverables or like physical things, right? Then yes.
And then I believe this was answered earlier, but just to reiterate, if someone fails review and is no longer allowed to reapply the following year, what would you suggest they continue their education with?
That would be a question they would ask their success coach. That's a hard question. So it's not something I can answer for everyone at this time.
Thank you. And then if I did a Zine/newsletter and a class here with provided wording from the professor, can I use that for portfolio or is it considered copyright material?
Nope, not considered copyright. One, protected under the academic clause, but two, it's something from your class that you can use. Yeah.
And then what exactly is the alternate list? And to clarify, if we submit a portfolio for this track, but no other tracks and get declined, we're not allowed to submit portfolio or any portfolio to any of the UCF Emerging Media BFAs at all in the future.
Correct. So the alternate list is basically when the faculty members review, they make a list of the top 70. And then there's the people that like 71 through like 90, I guess. They're like right under. If the top 70 do not accept all their positions, then we go to, like they go down a list. So like 71, do you still want to do graphic design? If they say yes, now they have a spot. If you say no, then it goes to 72. So that's the alternate list. And usually there's like a week of time between the first people accepting or not accepting. Then you would also have like a week to accept or not accept. And then that. And then separately, your second part of your question was if you only apply to graphic design, you can only get into graphic design. And so if you're declined, you do not have the opportunity anymore to apply to the other tracks. So you can't do graphic design this time. And then next year, you're like, let me try character animation. You cannot. All of them are considered under emerging media. So if you want or wanting to do particularly character or AV, you should do all three this one term. You will not get the opportunity to do a different one next year.
Thank you, Nairi. And then I took Intro to Digital Media and got a C. I learned that I need to have a B or above and took it again last semester and got an A. Would that affect, sorry, would that affect if I got into the program?
So as long as you got a B, then that would be that's the requirement. So you're good. You should go talk to your academic success coach about your major GPA though, just to make sure that is meeting the requirement.
Thank you. And then do we have to be full-time students each semester or are we allowed to be part-time students if we get accepted?
So it's a cohorted system and you must follow the cohort to stay in the program. So at the time of like so for instance, the first semester you would take intermediate graphic design 1. You would probably also be enrolled in type and design 1, and then you would also need to satisfy a couple of your elective requirements. So it's probably recommended that you are full-time, but you have to take those classes. Otherwise, you cannot move forward in the program. And yeah.
To add to that, there are certain classes you have to take in order. Technically, those classes are not full-time, like the ones you have to take in certain semesters. There's additional electives that are required for your major. So if you're not taking them as well, then you can't graduate on time. So it's in your best interest to be full-time for fall and spring for the next 2 years if you are admitted.
Thank you. And then what's the gigabyte design? Oh, sorry, let me restart. What is the gigabyte size the portfolio has to be around when submitting? RGB is fine since we are printing anything, correct?
Yes, RGB is fine. I have been asking about the size. I believe it is 20 megabytes, but I don't know for sure.
Gotcha. And then can we include works with nudity, or should those be left out or censored?
You can, yeah, we don't mind as long as there's no, any type of issues with it. No, it's fine.
If we applied last year, do you recommend including all new work, or can we reuse some entries if we believe it is our best work?
Yeah, I think, reusing the best work, but then like maybe assessing what I wouldn't put all the same work in, right? I would hopefully in the next year have new work to put in. So I would not try to apply with the same exact portfolio. And maybe looking at it and realizing, oh, maybe it needs to be more organized, more clear, more, maybe take a minute and really show the work better too. I tend to value the works that are professionally presented, meaning clear imagery, nice layouts, simple. So I would not just submit the same portfolio. I would improve it. But yeah, some of the works that you value are good, and feel free to reach out if you need help on that too.
If I designed a flyer for the Sanrio Club that has the character Hello Kitty on it, would that be allowed to be submitted since that's a copyrighted character?
I have concerns of how it was used for the city or uh
Hmm.
I
If
My
think about
thought
that.
though is if you have to like get this like explanation behind why you're using it, it's probably not your best thing to put in front of this like in this portfolio. It should be your own original work. So if you have to like get this clarification, maybe choose something else.
I agree. And just because you did it for a client doesn't mean it's your best work. I've seen some really bad client work. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much. And then if we got credit for, oh wait, no, Yumi already answered this question. It was regarding credit from 2D design in high school, but Yumi took care of that. And then I originally added small descriptions to the projects I presented. Would that not be recommended so that the focus is on the artwork?
That small description can be, as long as it's like a sentence, but no more, that's fine. But we just don't want really long-winded descriptions.
Gotcha. And then for fan art, is it discouraged even if we are completely recontextualizing the source material? For example, making a fictional restaurant that could be in an existing series, or making a movie poster slash magazine for a specific character or series. My design, I had a, or I, wait, my design, my class, there you go. My class had an assignment where we had to completely reimagine an existing book cover. Are these ideas acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, that in the phrasing alone says yes, because you're completely reimagining it, and I'm okay with it being from a class. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And then is software something we have to provide ourselves if we get into the program? For example, the Adobe applications.
Yes, yeah, they do have an educational discount, but it is something that you have to purchase yourself. Yes.
And can we add video slash motion graphic projects in the portfolio?
Yes, but it's being a PDF. You can't embed video. You can though put like screenshots of it, and if you want to put a link to the video, so you would need like a public accessible link that we can access, or whether it be on YouTube, and you don't have to like post it, but just make it so we can see it. Unlisted, you would put it at in YouTube, I believe, if you want us to see the motion graphic, but you can't put videos in a PDF. They won't play.
Okay. And do we have the creative liberty to design our portfolio format, or do we need to follow the exact way as shown in the video linked on the website?
Yeah, you can take creative liberties. Just make sure a couple things that it's labeled correctly and it is not distracting from the work. So a lot of people want to make some really cool backgrounds that are like gradients or, lots of color, but then it clashes with the work, right? So it doesn't do the work justice. So do some cool things, right? But then make the work shine. Put the focus on the work looking good.
And then is studio art part of emerging media?
No, it is not. It is its own major in the BFA. So there's BFA Emerging Media, and underneath that umbrella would be BFA, BFA Emerging Media in either animation, or they have a new, I forget their track. They have different tracks, and graphic design is one of those tracks. And then you have the studio art BFA or BA. That's a different.
Thank you. And then for my 2D design class, I did a value project for a live action Marvel character. In the animation and visualization information session, I was told you can't put it in the portfolio as it would be considered fan art. So can it be put in that portfolio to show my use of value, or can I only put it in the graphic design portfolio?
I can't speak to their portfolio, or their portfolio is different than ours, but you can put it in our portfolio because it demonstrates value. As long as it's good.
Thank you. And then if we get in this semester, can we start classes like electives this summer?
Yes, you can do electives this summer. It just, in general, there's not many SVAD electives offered in summer. There's usually like 3. So the likelihood of that is low, but you can if you are around during summer.
Thank you. All right, and we just have 5 more questions left, so we're almost in the final stretch with 10 minutes until 10:30. For the first one, who could I reach out to for help with the portfolio layout?
So you can reach out to me. Actually, I didn't share the last one on the but it's all our contact information. But you can reach it. Let me share it real quick.
And then while
Um,
Ashley, all right, perfect. She has shared the screen.
Hold on. You're gonna see a lot of scrolling through as I get to the last page. So these are the contact. You can contact me if you'd like at ashley@ucf.edu. I anticipate a lot of emails after this, so just have a little bit of patience because I also teach full time too, so I'm answering my student emails, but I will get to you. You can also schedule an office hour with me. So if you email me and say, hey, I'd like to schedule an office hour, I will send you a sign up link that you can enroll in to do a 15-minute office hour session. So my email is just my name @ucf.edu.
I'd like to add not to use that SVAD email because that's not an active email anymore. So do
My
not use
bad.
that.
Don't
SVAD
use that
email.
one. Sorry. I pulled that. Where did I pull that? Okay, I'll have to not. Don't use that SVAD email.
SVAD email. Do not use that.
Thank you. And then for the next question, let me see. If you have already completed the electives, or let me repeat that. If you have already the electives completed and you only take the core classes, is it okay to not be FT? I believe that is full time if you stay on time for graduation.
Talk to your coach specifically because I can't tell you what you completed and what you haven't. But if you have, then yes.
And then if an assignment was to replicate a movie poster, but doing something out of or by adding something our own to it, can we still add it or is it copyright? And could we add the original on the slide?
I don't want you to add the original because we could think it's yours if we don't know the movie. So just only include your work in it. And that includes like the masthead or the title. That should also be your work too. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Ashley. And then I created several compositions of a Lego car for a class. Would there be a problem with copyright?
Can you repeat that one more time? It broke up for me. Sorry.
No worries. I created several compositions of a Lego car for a class. Would there be a problem with copyright?
So it was using Lego to, and I feel like
Yeah, this
That
question came
is-
from Stephanie Martinez, if she would like to elaborate.
you're pretty much using someone else's intellectual property in that case, because you're using Lego, right? So to me, it feels unoriginal.
Gotcha. And then do you have to put a brief statement for each portfolio piece? And if so, would you put the text in the portfolio slide pieces or on the comment section in the PDF?
We're just gonna be looking at the PDF. You do not have to have a brief description. I just need a label. That's it. Just to give us context of what it is.
Maybe he put us in T.
And then let's see, is having
Mason,
color theory
tell
a requirement
Rebby
for
where
the
you put it,
portfolio,
when it's
or is it
surplus.
having other types of work fine?
I'm sorry, Felix. You have to say that again.
It's okay. Since I'm at the front office, it is getting a bit loud. Is having color theory a key requirement for the portfolio, or is having other types of work fine? And this is also our last question as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not like totally required, but hopefully you have something in there that demonstrates your use of color. So it doesn't have to be the color theory project from 2D, right? But if you're submitting a design project that you did or a poster, hopefully the colors are demonstrating maybe different types of hues, different values, right? Or different types of saturations, right? The 3 elements of color. Hopefully those are demonstrated somehow.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Ashley. As you were answering that question, another one had come in, or now 2 questions had come in. Should we stop here since it's kind of 5 minutes till 10:30?
It's okay, keep going.
Okay. Is asymmetry work required?
A symmetry work required. So symmetry is a Gestalt principle of balance, right? So if you're asking like, I did a project that demonstrates symmetry, that's not required. It's something you could consider. But if it just depends. I'd have to see it.
All right. And then are we able to reference this recording at a later time, and where can we access this? I can answer this one. After this meeting is over, that's when the recording will end, of course. This will be uploaded on the graphic design portfolio webpage specifically. So if you went to our website, the SVAD.com, which is School of Visual Arts and Design, and go to the graphic design in the academic portion area. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the graphic design portfolio. It is a bright blue rectangle as well. It'll be uploaded shortly to that website. There's just telling when.
I can't imagine.
Oh, and Yumi just put it into the chat as well. So feel free to copy that link and save it.
And I just finally got some notification on the file size. It is 25 megabytes.
25 megabytes. Perfect. All right. And thank you, Ashley. That was our last question.
Awesome. Thank you all and have a good day.